What's up, guys? We're going to be doing a little throwback today. I'm going to let you guys enjoy a little gameplay in the background while I explain what this series is all about, seeing as this is the first video. Basically, what we're going to be doing is taking games from our past and see how they hold up today. Now, the main goal of this channel is to find games that people haven't played in years, discuss the good, discuss the bad, and everything in between there. So today we have a game that is pretty popular, even after over a decade since its release. Now, most games we're going to be playing are going to be games that have kind of died in popularity, but with the open beta just finishing and the release of its sequel coming up soon, I figured there's no better time than now to talk about Diablo 3. Now, Diablo 3 released on May 15th, 2012, and since then has had plenty of re-releases on all platforms. I know what you're thinking, 2012, that's not nostalgia, people still play Diablo 3 today. Well, it's been out for almost 11 years now, and I figured with the nearby release of Diablo 4, why not check it out and see if it still holds up today. Now, let me start by saying that I love the Diablo series. I've played through both Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 many times, but today I'm going to take a good look and see if it can hold its own against the games that are being released today. Now keep in mind, guys, that this is my first time in over 10 years making any sort of YouTube content. I'm working on my editing, working on my overall video making skills, and I'm always trying to improve. With that said, let's take a trip and go for a little throwback. Now, starting off with the story, I think Diablo 3's story holds up well today. As much as you can expect for an action RPG anyway. I've always kind of felt as though the story for this game is something that comes second compared to the actual gameplay. Now, just to kind of get into the story a little bit, I'm just going to do a brief overview. Story starts with you, the player, known as the Nephilim, in a world called Sanctuary. You start by arriving in New Tristram, where you meet with Leah. Sooner or later, you come along and rescue Cain, who, spoiler alert, dies. Story goes on, and you meet an angel named Tyrael. Eventually continuing through the story, the ultimate goal obviously being to kill Diablo. This ends with you defeating Diablo, where Tyrael decides to rejoin the high heavens, but decides to remain as mortal. Of course, this was a very brief summary of the story, but a story synopsis isn't really something that we're here to discuss today. If you want to learn more about the story, I highly recommend you play the game or watch one of the many in-depth lore videos that are out there. Now, overall, I think the story's interesting, but like I said, I feel like it's something that usually comes second with these games. Action RPGs, their story being an RPG is something that's definitely going to be focused on, but I feel like specifically with action RPGs, you want to have fun gameplay first, so I always feel like that's what the developers are focusing on. So the story isn't so boring that you're going to fall asleep playing the game. If you're someone who likes to play very narrative-driven games, then this probably isn't the game for you, I'll be honest. Some of the dialogue can feel stale at times, and after a few playthroughs, I've honestly just found myself kind of clicking through the boxes and not really being interested in the story. I just want to get through the game, play the gameplay, and do what you're supposed to do? So, compared to games of today, I don't think that the story here is anything bland, and there's definitely a lot of world building placed inside of the game. I would say that the story holds up today, and it's not going to feel dated like some other games maybe of the time period. So next, let's take a look at the general inventory and interface system. Starting with the general interface, I feel like it's overall pretty user-friendly. When they built this game, I definitely think they had the average gamer in mind. When I play this, I keep in mind Diablo 2's interface. It's definitely a bit different, and I would say much harder to navigate and get a general understanding for someone new to this kind of game. If you're playing Diablo 3 on PC, then it's kind of simple to see all the keybinds that each tab and each skill is bound to. For example, with the pre-installed key bindings that you're going to have when you just install the game on PC, skills is bound to S, inventory is bound to I, so on and so forth, which is pretty standard, I feel like, for PC games. It'll definitely feel natural to just about anybody who's playing this, even for the first time. Speaking of keybinds, I think that whoever's idea it was for all of your abilities and potions to be bound to the buttons on one side of your keyboard, so that way you don't have to reach halfway across your keyboard, should just be the head of Blizzard, honestly. Coming from playing a lot of MMOs and either having to reach across your keyboard to use an ability or to buy and use a mouse designed specifically for MMOs. This is just an absolute blessing that I cannot get over. Let's move on to the inventory system and management. Personally, I think that this inventory system is so much easier to use than something like Diablo 2. While both games use a grid based system and every item takes up a certain number of grid squares in the inventory, the fact that the inventory is larger and items like arrows and bolts don't exist makes it feel so much easier to keep your inventory clean and keep track of all your items. Now, this isn't a video, obviously, comparing Diablo 2 to Diablo 3, which at this point it might start to seem like it. But the way of equipping items hasn't changed much. It's still pretty cut and dry. You place the chest piece in the chest slot, rings in the ring slot, so on and so on. Now, looking at the inventory and the interface system together, I don't think that either feels outdated. If you go ahead and look at other action RPGs, it's gonna all be pretty much the same. Now, looking at games like Last Epic, Grim Dawn, Diablo Immortal, and even from just playing the Diablo 4 beta, you can tell that this system clearly works and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon in this genre. I think this is because it's so easy to use and understand that you can honestly come from playing just a first person shooter or any other kind of genre game, and you can just get these systems down in a matter of minutes. I mean, you don't even need a tutorial. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, one of the biggest things that I think is going to push people away from older games is, of course, the graphics. So let's see how the graphics hold up today. Keep in mind what you're watching is all the settings turned up to max, and honestly, I don't think it looks too bad. I've read about a lot of complaints from people about the art style changing drastically from Diablo 2 to Diablo 3. And it has, I won't lie, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Diablo 3 definitely has somewhat more of a cartoony look than previous games, but I don't think this really pulls away from the immersion or the eerie vibe that the other games have had. While I do have to admit that Diablo 2's art style was creepy and I think could always keep you on edge because it just felt a lot more dark, I still feel like you can feel the bleak world that Diablo 3 has to offer. I've never been on edge playing this game or genuinely been creeped out entering a dungeon like other games might have, but if that's something you want, you're definitely not going to get there. But with that ran over, this game's graphics are not outdated. I think the game still looks beautiful, and the lighting throughout the game has a lot to do with that. Now, is that me saying that Diablo 3 is going to look like a AAA game that came out this year? Absolutely not. But are the graphics going to turn people away because they're so ugly that you can't even play it anymore? Again, absolutely not. I mean, just look at some of this armor that you can equip and just how badass you can look wearing it. You're not going to find many games where you have this amount of customization to look how you want, even in the RPG genre. You want to be the embodiment of what a Lord of the Undead Necromancer is? Okay, no problem. Got it. You want to look like a rag, tattered rogue who can destroy anyone in their path? Okay, no problem. For an action RPG, this game looks great. It has a brutal atmosphere that's going to continue to pull you in and can make you feel immersed into the world no matter what. So, if you haven't guessed already, I think that this game, of course, holds up when it comes to the graphics. It's not going to take a top of the line PC to run this game, but obviously, since this series is all about looking at games from the past, just about any modern PC that has gaming in mind isn't going to have an issue running pretty much anything we're ever going to talk about, even on max settings. So don't be afraid that the graphics are going to be unbearable to play through. Something like this is going to be fine for a while. Next, let's move into the skills and abilities. Now, I'm going to preface this section by saying that all of the skills and abilities in this game are amazing. I've done a playthrough of this game with just about every class except for the Crusader. I know, I'm working on it. Now, I plan on getting around to the Crusader soon, but I think I have a good grasp on the abilities in the game. Let's take a look at my personal favorite, and I know a lot of other people's favorites, the Necromancer. Now, Necromancers are always my favorite role to play in just about every video game that has them. Guild Wars 2, Necromancer. Grim Dawn, Necromancer. And obviously, every Diablo game, Necromancer is the first class I'll always play. The idea of raising the dead is just about the coolest thing you could do in a video game. Back on topic though. As the necromancer, you can raise skeletons, summon flesh golems, use curses, bone magic, more. The demon hunter, you're basically a rogue, right? They use bows, have skills centered around it. They have caltrops. They can rapid fire your bow, use some shadow abilities. Overall, they're pretty cool. Now, I'm not going to get too into detail on every single class. This isn't a video that's meant to take a deep dive into the game and give you a general review. This video is meant to answer the question, does it still hold up today? Now, the rest of the classes have awesome abilities that make you feel extremely powerful too. On that note though, on higher difficulties, your abilities are useful, but not too powerful that you feel like you're running over everything and have no challenge. Personally, I would never recommend playing the game on anything less than hard. Few playthroughs that I've had with my friends on normal difficulties, we found ourselves turning it up to Nightmare shortly after starting because some of your skills can just one-shot everything. I would say if you're playing on a solid difficulty, your skills will feel great and you'll enjoy using them a lot. So like every other section before, do the skills and abilities still hold up today? And the answer once again is absolutely yes. Your skills are always going to be fun to use, and you're always going to look badass using them. There's never going to be a dull moment. You have so many options to pick from, and you're really going to enjoy it. For our last section, and honestly the biggest one, let's take a look at the gameplay. Let's be upfront here, the gameplay can be repetitive at times. I mean, you're looking at 8 to 10 hours in a normal full playthrough of running through areas, killing enemies, leveling up, so on and so on. I mean, it kind of repeats itself. Of course, there's the story in there, which, like I discussed before, it's definitely interesting, but after a few playthroughs, at that point, it's going to be killing enemies, level up, unlock new abilities, kill enemies, get loot, so on and so on. I think the saving grace for this game, though, is the leveling up system. You unlock new abilities every few levels, and so you always have something new to look forward to. You can constantly switch up your playstyle and use different abilities so that you're not always doing the same thing over and over again. For example, I think that with the Demon Slayer, it would be boring in my opinion to only ever be able to shoot enemies with a bow and rapid fire that bow. Instead, you can have special abilities like throwing knives or shooting elemental arrows. Or even with the Necromancer, you can use bone spikes, or you can explode corpses of enemies that you just killed. You will always have something new to look forward to just by leveling up. Once you find a playstyle you can stick with it, you can enjoy it. And I can honestly say after about 10 plus playthroughs, I still have fun and I still look forward to playing Diablo 4 just as many times. I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind is the fact that there's always different things every single playthrough. You'll find that there's new dungeons to explore in every area. There are new mini bosses to fight, and the biggest thing, new gear for every playthrough. Sometimes the gear might only have different stats, but sometimes the gear can look different. Sometimes the weapons will have different abilities or just add overall new elements to the gameplay. Speaking of weapons, and we spoke about skills, it's always a great time to stack up chain kills and just feel unstoppable. You can string together mass AoE abilities and kill everything in your path, and I think Diablo does this great by sometimes swarming a large group of enemies towards you. The best part, you get rewarded for it. This can take form of multiplied experience, or increased speed for a short time. I mean, overall, just the general concept of killing the demons or killing whatever enemies are in front of you, it's always a good time, and honestly, it takes quite a while to get bored of it. Let's look at the online element of this game. First off, let's look at the PvP. I'll be honest, I can't speak on that much. I definitely know that there's PvP in this game, and I'm sure that it's still alive and well, but I've just never really been one for PvP in this game. What I do know is that there is still a large player base for competition. People are always competing at the start of every season to become the top ranked player. If you look at the leaderboards, I mean, you will constantly see people changing places and people just getting to the top. I do think that with the release of Diablo 4, they're going to be phasing this out probably with no more seasons because they're going to be focusing on Diablo 4 and people are going to be focusing on reaching the top of that season in the new game. But I might be wrong on that. Who knows? Speaking of online elements, I think what makes this game stand out from the rest and makes this game so great is being able to play with your friends. Being able to kill demons with your friends and playing different classes that synergize with each other is honestly one of the most fun things you can do. I know my friends probably hate me by now because of how often I'll ask them to do a playthrough of Diablo with me. I've already convinced all of them to buy Diablo 4 and do a playthrough of that with me too. Now, I get that not everyone is going to have friends to play through the game with, and that's okay. This game still has a very large community, and whenever you log in, you can always see people typing in the chat. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. When Diablo Immortal came out, a lot of the player base for Diablo 3 stayed. While that might have something to do with the insane microtransactions and the other things that were wrong with Diablo Immortal, I do think that just shows how great of a game Diablo 3 is after over 10 years. I think even after Diablo 4 comes out, the multiplayer is still going to be thriving and you'll have no problem finding others to play with just by searching on Reddit or other forums for players that are still playing Diablo 3. So, how is the gameplay? Well, if you couldn't tell, it's amazing. There are always things to do, and it'll take a while for you to get bored with the game. You have over 7 classes to choose from with their own unique play styles. If you can get a group of friends together, this is absolutely still a must play even after all this time. So, let's just see if this throwback is worth it. Well, does the story hold up? Yep. Does the interface hold up? Yep. Do graphics hold up? Yep. And does the gameplay still feel good after all these years? Without a doubt, yes. Honestly, I can't recommend this game enough. If you haven't played Diablo 3 in the past, then you're missing out. Even after over 10 years, this game is something that even new players are going to enjoy. If you played this in the past and you want to find out if Diablo 3 is worth giving another go, then the answer is again, yes. So, now that we got to do a little throwback and see if Diablo 3 is still worth playing, I just want to say I appreciate everyone that watched until the end of this video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I have some games planned for the future, and let me just say it has been a struggle to play through some of them. It'd be greatly appreciated if you guys would like and share this video. Still new to this whole YouTube thing, like I said. I'm still working on bettering my editing skills and all of my equipment so I can continue to improve the quality of these videos so that I can give you guys something a little bit more bearable to watch. If you guys want to see me play something from your childhood to see if it still holds up today, just let me know in the comments and I'll check it out. Until the next throwback, guys.